Okay, so we are in the last section of our looking at features formed on Earth's surface. And today we're taking a look at how a glacier will create a surface feature. And again, as we think about our key terms, the key terms are erosion and deposition. And so erosional features are formed again by the glacier, and the result is a rock. And then as the glacier moves and it stops, the features that are formed are depositional features, and again, they're made out of sands and gravels. So let's start with erosion. There are three ways in which a glacier can erode the surface of our planet. And the first one is by plucking. And so you see the picture here. Glaciers are very strong, they're slow moving. And so if there are rocks that are jutting out, it's going to break them off and then collect them and take them on that very slow ride of the glacier. Now that chunk of rock or that massive boulder is going to be moving across rock, and so it's going to cause these cracks, these grooves, these striations. That process is called abrasion, or breaking down of the rock through lots of different collisions with other rock. The third example is of meltwater. As summer comes and the glacier is having a lot more water, that stream water, that meltwater, can also do the work of erosion. And so now we're going to take a look at some of the features that are formed by this glacial erosion. The most common one and the most easily recognizable one is this huge valley. Now in streams, we talked about the valley being V-shaped. Well, here, the valley is U-shaped. So the glacial trough or the glacial valley is U-shaped. Now you can see the other U-shaped that sort of connect with it. Here's one, here's another one, and here's a third one. Those are called hanging valleys. And those hanging valleys are smaller glaciers that are working like a tributary to a larger glacier. And again, all glaciers, just like rivers, are moving from high elevation to lower elevation. You've got one glacier here, and then you've got another glacier on the other side of it. Well, there's going to be a ridge in between, and it's pretty steep. It's almost like a knife. So that is a German term called an Riet. You take a look up here, you see you've got a circle, and then you've got another circle, and you've got another circle. The weight of the glacier high in the mountains is going to cause a digging out in a circular shape. And so it's just named for that shape, and they're called cirques. The final feature is probably the most common if you've been to Disneyland and ridden the Matterhorn. A horn is just where you have 1, 2, 3 at minimum glaciers that carved out, leaving that peak. Now, there are some water features after the glaciers have all gone away. The first one here is a tarn. It's a lake that's found in a cirque. You've got a variety of lakes, all in connection points in that glacial valley. Those are called paternoster lakes. And then a super cool feature here is waterfalls at the intersection of a hanging valley and the large glacial trough. Let's take a look at some actual examples and some pictures. So here are 3 paternoster lakes, 1 and 2 and 3. And then this picture here shows that perfect U-shaped glacial valley. Here are 2 hanging valleys, one here and then another one right here. If you've ever traveled to Yosemite, which is in California, there's all kinds of hanging valleys and some of the coolest waterfalls you will find in our state. These are cirques, one in the middle and another one here and another one here. They're also called a bowl if you like to ski or you snowboard. And you can even go to Mammoth in our Sierra Nevadas and see all kinds of these as you're driving up to go skiing. So that lake in the bottom of a cirque is called a tarn. You can see a picture of one here. Here's a picture of that knife edge, which again is called an Riet. And then there's a classic picture of the Matterhorn. And again, you have a glacier here, and there would be glaciers on every side of it, carving and making that peak more and more steep. The last example is called a fjord. And you can again see as the glacier goes all the way into the ocean, it's going to carve those steep sides, but yet there's water now in the valley. So we're going to transition to features formed by deposition, and we're going to first look at examples of till. So till is a mixture, basically think of the glacier like a snowplow or some type of big moving equipment, and it pushes and creates this pile. That is called a till. Now, when you have a meltwater stream or river, it's going to take the material and it's going to make it all sands or all silts, and that is called a drift. So we'll first look at till, and then we'll look at drift. Here's a picture of glacial till. Again, you can see really large chunks and then small sands and gravels. That is what is a classic till. The most common, well, there are two common examples of till. The first one being just these random huge leftover rocks left by the glacier. And so those are called glacial erratics. And there's our classic example of till. And the second one is a moraine. And a moraine is basically a ridge of till. And so as the glacier is moving, it could be at the end of the glacier, called an end moraine. Got other pictures. It could be in the middle, a middle moraine, or to the side, called a lateral moraine. Again, if you're driving up to Mammoth, you can see that our local mountains and the Sierra Nevadas were once glaciated. The glacier moved down, and here's a lateral moraine. And then here on this side is also another lateral moraine. Now the ice sheet deposition, so much of the United States, especially like Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan, 10,000 years ago, there was a huge, massive continental glacier. And then rivers were moving out of that glacier, and what you're gonna have sort of left over are these examples of drift. And so drift, again, is pretty well sorted. We're gonna go over a couple examples here. We've got cames, which are little hills, eskers, which are snake-like remnants of old meltwater streams, and then drumlins, which are these canoe-shaped things that have been left. And again, you'll find these all throughout the northern Midwest states of the United States. Okay, so here's a drumlin. A drumlin helps geologists understand what direction it was moving. You can see, again, it is canoe-shaped. Again, it is an example of that drift material, which is all sort of one-sized. Here's a came, or a little hill. You can imagine almost like a little whirlpool, and then all the sands filtered out and created this hill as that glacier was melting. And the third example, again, is those meltwater streams are going underneath the glacier. It's forming this depositional area, and again, that is called an esker. One last example that I do want to show you today is that of a kettle lake. So large glaciers have huge chunks of ice. Now when those huge chunks of ice melt, they're going to leave these pockets of ponds or lakes, and those lakes are called kettle lakes. We'll do a couple activities looking at this, but overall, take a look at your textbook and read more about it. All right, have a great day.